Welcome to the Bad Roman Podcast. On this show, we talk with veterans, community leaders, Christians and non-Christians as we explore the entanglement of Christians with the state. The Bad Roman Project was created out of the firm belief that as Christians, we are called to follow Christ, not the state. Here is your host, Craig Hargis.
Hey folks, let's talk immigration. Just because there's a law, does it make it moral? What about personal property versus border laws? Today, Larken Rose comes back on the show to discuss this very hot topic.
Let's go. Yeah. Left, right, left, right, left. We got our marching orders, man. Left, right. Would you rather serve God than serve Caesar? You feel me? Right. I'm just trying to live what he said. I'm just trying to live.
Larken, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, in spite of the lunacy going on in the world.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier, and I've tried to take like my personal page back to those stupid cat videos or something like that, or something that's funny. I'm not always good at it, but I'm in political groups. So I've got the Bad Roman Facebook page. If I need to vent, I can use that to get it out there, and then just leave everybody alone on my personal page and share pictures of my cats. So it seems to kind of like Amanda does on her page. I like to see the pictures of y'all's cat running around too. It makes it a lot less stressful, I think. But at the same time, it doesn't keep me from paying attention to what's going on in the world. And this conversation today, immigration, is something that is very frustrating for me, especially looking at it from the eyes of how I believe Jesus would look at it as a Christian, and seeing how my fellow Christians are running around celebrating some of this stuff, glossing over some of this stuff, and pretending like it's not that big a deal when it's a huge deal. And I'm not saying that Biden or Obama did not deport, people. We know they did. There's stats out there that Obama and Biden deported more people than Trump did. But what's going on right now seems, I don't know if it's the media or if it's so in our face right now, but there's something about this going on that just seems so, it seems like we've seen this before. We've got literal concentration camps being used to put these people in. I just don't think that the idea that it's okay, especially from the eyes of a Christian. I try not to speak on behalf of people who are not Christians because I don't think it's fair. I want them to, talk about their experience with this on their own. But when it comes to Christians in the church, I think they're failing miserably on this. And this is why I wanted to have you on to talk about this. As a post I saw of yours on Facebook. We got to talking, and now here we are. We're going to talk about this today and hopefully shed some light on this, that people can look at this in a different way, because it's seriously needed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the reason, I don't even remember the exact context where we were talking back and forth, but we were both like, yeah, we should totally do a show about that. And I brought up the term of undesirables because I think that's what's different right now. Like Obama and going back forever, the immigration thuggery and stuff, it's not at all new. Trump didn't invent that. But what we're seeing a lot more of right now is the demonization of a whole category of people. Those illegals, and the entire thing of a category of undesirables that governments everywhere have used. Like obviously Hitler used the Jews, used some other groups too, but it isn't just about, like, if Trump came out and said, we're going to crack down on the people who are like coming here and murdering people, and like he'll mention that, but he wants people to associate that with the category of illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Because tyrants don't get much power like threatening to go after individuals who do nasty things. Like there's not that much power to be had just controlling genuinely nasty people, murderers and thieves and stuff. But in order to get power over lots of people, government has to create a whole group and say, this is why we need to control them and you and everybody, because there's this category of scary people. So we need these surveillance powers, and we need to be able to search this, and we need to be able to barge around and go all brown shirts and asking, are you here legally? And so the creepy thing to me is just the mentality. And it's not at all unique to immigrants. That's just sort of the example of what's happening right now. The rhetoric is designed to make people hate illegal aliens, even though a huge number of illegal aliens, like people who are here without the permission of the ruling class, are really good people, and they're really responsible, and they're really hardworking. A bunch of them pay taxes, even though they'll never get anything. Like the characterization of they're all either coming here to like murder people or get welfare benefits. The goal of that is to make people hate a category. And for Christians in particular to fall for that, like you were that category, remember? Like this was done to you too. It's sad to see how easily fear can make so many people jump to hatred, and not even like righteous, zealous resentment of actual perpetrators of evil stuff, because that's always around, and that should be around, like actually opposing evil people. But to be tricked into jumping on the bandwagon of, like, let's go hate those people and do nasty things to them and celebrate the widespread violence because we think that category is bad. It's just gross. And it's so out in the open and obvious now that it's just, ugh.
Well, and it's one of those things too. And I've told people this, I've even mentioned on a couple other podcasts recently that, and I've always hesitated to use the word racist because a lot of times that word racist is used out of context. It's used without the proper definition of what racism is. Because I don't believe that everything can be racist. I mean, people will say, well, that's racist. And when I can be like, I don't think that's racist. Like, you remember the comedian that had a joke about, I think it was Puerto Rico. And then all of a sudden people flared up on the left saying that's racist. And I was like, he was talking about a country, man. He's not talking about people, And I don't think everything's racist. But what I'm seeing along the lines of the way Trump is behaving and talking about these people, that's actually the definition of racism. And and I've said this recently as well, too, that his followers, his supporters have taken on his identity, and whether they know it or not, they're being low key racist the way they're treating these people.
Yeah.
And I wish they would take a step back and think about that for a second. If you forget, because maybe the way the definition, or maybe the way racist has been used so much lately, or even in the past, that it's lost its true meaning, and people don't even know if they don't even know they're being racist. Because I've got friends and family that are Trump supporters, and I know we were raised different. We're raised good people, but I don't know the way they're talking about this stuff. I don't think they understand what it looks like and how they actually sound, because they don't understand. Maybe they don't know what the definition of racism is.
Yeah, and the irony there is that whole thing, like the people who the most talk about racism, which is the political left, are the most often blatantly, openly racist in several different ways. One is, if you're white, we're allowed to hate you and condemn white people and condemn men and condemn straight people. And like, we're allowed to hate them. And that's the problem, is when there's a category of people you're allowed to hate, like it's sort of societally accepted, or at least within a group. And right now within Trumpites, you're allowed to hate the illegals, the illegal immigrants. It's good to hate them. And people don't get that's all those stories of tyranny. That's when you were allowed to hate those people. They think, oh, well, no, they did mean things to people who they shouldn't have hated. Now there's people we should hate. And so it's okay that we're mistreating them. And racism is sort of a subset of that. But it's very much an element that people like Trump can tap into. It's the other thing. Well, like, those people don't sound like me and they don't look like me. Should I be scared of them? Should I hate them? Should I cheer for government to control them? And just whether you're talking about like a basic morality for people who aren't even religious, or Christians in particular, the idea, like, to pretend that Jesus believed in, well, yeah, that whole category of people, they sort of suck. You can just hate them and do nasty things. That, like, does that in any way match anything that he's ever quoted to have said? But it's a people thing, because people fall for that. It's so easy to get them to be scared of an enemy, and fear is so easy to turn into hatred. And hatred is so easy to turn into evil. Like, now we're going to do something to that scary group. And it's sadly, this isn't new. And almost every country has fallen for it in several different directions. And that's how the people in power get their power, is by finding ways to get the their human livestock to hate and fear and attack each other, instead of all of us going, I don't care what you sound like and what you look like. If you'll leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. And by the way, watch out for the psychos who want us to be at war with each other.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of that.
All right. So I want to ask you about a couple of descriptions of people that I've heard you say, but Mango Mussolini is one of my new favorite ways to describe Trump. And I think it was you that I first saw use that phrase. And I'd asked you before we started recording if you came up with that. You said no, but the next one is your new one. It is something that you came up with. And I heard this last night preparing for this while I was watching one of your videos. And I had to restart the video because I was cracking up so hard whenever I heard this one quote. But with Mango Mussolini, let's start there because like I told you earlier before we started recording that I think the whole Oompa Loompa phrase has ran its course and it's not near as funny as it used to be. But man, Mango Mussolini is working really well right now. And
the thing is, I don't remember where I first heard it. Like, I have no idea who, and I don't even know if that was the first person to say it. But it struck me as in addition to being hysterical, it's all the way accurate. And the thing is, most people have sort of this comic book view of history. And it's like, oh, Nazi Germany, some stuff happened and fascism happened. And hardly anybody like researches that stuff to think, well, why? Why did people not only let them get away with that, but they cheered for it?
Yeah.
Like, this is humanity. This wasn't like a different species that did that. This was us. This was human beings that cheered for it. And there was an actual guy, Adolf Hitler, and there was an actual guy, Benito Mussolini, and they actually went out and said these things, and lots of people actually went, yay. And most people have no idea how they happened. And if you look up Mussolini and his speeches, it's Trump. And by the way, Mussolini was really weird. If you watch his mannerisms and his behaviors, if you you don't speak his language, you don't speak Italian, and it's laughably weird. I mean, Hitler was laughably weird and like not quite as ridiculous as Mussolini, if you ask me. And you think, how does anybody look at that and go, yeah, he's speaking for us? And then if you look at his terminology and what he said and what he argued, it's absolutely, there's even a quote. I put this in my, I did a big thing years ago called It Can't Happen Here, a big documentary. It's like 90 minutes long. And Mussolini said something like, well, if sometimes we're being like harsh and a little bit authoritarian, it's only because of the importance of having law and order. Well, gee whiz, what does that sound like? Like, these things in history that really happened, so few people bother to look into it and go, how on earth did that come to pass? Because if they look, they'd go, oh, holy smokes, he sounds exactly like Trump does now. Yeah. So he is a Mango Mussolini. And it's funny, too, but it's like he has enough in common with Hitler, but everybody knows that. And it's sort of a cliche thing. Like, everybody calls everybody they're opposed to Hitler, and almost none of them know what Hitler actually advocated. He was an authoritarian collectivist. He was a socialist, which the left conveniently forget about. But Mussolini is a more precise analogy to Trump's mentality and his boisterous bravado approach of give me lots of power and I'll make everything right. Make Italy great again.
I was, well, and I think maybe that's why the phrase is so funny, is because of how accurate it actually is.
Yeah.
Now, it's sad that we've got somebody's in power, they put somebody in power that behaves this way. But at the same time, if you've ever heard the phrase, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah.
This is one of those things with Trump and Mango Mussolini. It's so accurate that it's funny.
Yeah.
That's why it's so funny, I think.
And I do think that making light of things, I mean, there's a lot of very serious stuff going on, and we both know that, and probably everybody listening knows that.
Right.
But there is, weirdly enough, power in making fun of the nasty people, too, and laughing at them. Like, the last thing they want is for their subjects to be laughing at them and like, yeah, the emperor has no clothes and he's like this demented creep. Because if they don't have sort of the respect and reverence of the people who are supposed to bow to them, then their rule is, sooner or later doomed.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to make fun of them and laugh at them. It's also just fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And see, I get pushback from people who follow the Bad Roman Project when I do make fun of them because, well, I guess I'm supposed to behave a certain way as a Christian, and maybe I am, but at the same time, I'm also not without fault. And I find great joy in making fun of maniacs, especially when they make it so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't so easy, I probably wouldn't even waste my time on it. But Trump especially makes it incredibly easy to make fun of him. And I don't feel bad about making fun of somebody who is responsible for the slaughter of innocent human people or the caging of innocent human people.
Yeah. He's a war criminal. There's no rule about you have to be polite to war criminals. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that, weirdly, I think this is a really good sign that humanity is moving in the right direction, even though it sounds weird. The lack of civility and respect in political discourse, weirdly enough, I think is a good thing in one way. Because if we all talk as if, well, we can disagree about their policies and their legislative agendas, but you all have to respect our congressman and our president. When people are in that mentality, they put up with way worse stuff. When people start to say, Emperor has no clothes and he's this demented joker and he's just sort of he should be a laughing stock, and people who fall for it is just ridiculous. I think that is a better sign about humanity, even if it's like, well, can't you be nice and considerate and sort of polite to people you disagree with? Well, not if they're advocating widespread evil and cheering for just lunacy. I don't think that's a time to be gentle and respectful.
Yeah.
Now, I'll point out, if anybody doesn't know, that I don't myself identify as Christian, even though I have lots in common with Christians. So I'm rather more blunt and rude to statists than maybe the average Christian believes he should be. But I think there's actually something important that whatever degree you do it to, because if you see evil staring you in the face and you go, well, we just have different opinions, that's not okay. That's really, really, this isn't just, well, you like mass murder, I don't like mass murder, tomato, whatever. It's just a personal opinion. Like, if we don't condemn evil as evil, I don't care what your religious belief is or lack thereof. There's something wrong with you if you can't go, whoa, that's really evil and ridiculous and insane. And I think society is largely, at least American society, has largely gotten to the point where there's this weird underlying assumption that's been, I think it's largely been pushed by the left, that however dumb and bonkers somebody else's opinion is, you're supposed to treat it as if it's equally valid and deserving of respect. And that's just anti-truth and anti-just. If it's your opinion that 2 + 2 is 5, you're an ignoramus and you're wrong. It isn't just, well, I think it's this and you think it's that. And when it comes to things like literally involving evil and the, widespread victimization of innocent people, at some point, I think being polite and civil and respectful to the people advocating evil, I think that's worse than all the way being in their face and rude and condemning what they're doing and making fun of it.
Well, and if you think about the early church and even Jesus himself, they spent a lot of time thumbing their nose at the state anyway.
Yeah,
walking around. So I mean, I don't think I'm going to have to answer to Jesus in the end. Why did you make fun of Trump so much?
How dare you?
Well, I'd be like, Jesus, who are you talking about? Mango Mussolini? I mean, I had to make fun of that guy.
Yeah, I think there are worse sins to worry about than that.
All right. So the next one, the next phrase that I heard on your video about Dave Smith, and you said border fetish brigade, and I laughed out loud, like howling out loud. And I laughed for the next 5 or 10 minutes, missed almost the rest of your video, started it over because I was still writing down notes and stuff, but I'd never heard anybody say this before. And it's because it's another phrase that is like, that is so accurate.
Yeah.
That is one of the most accurate things I've heard to describe these people who are so defensive when it comes to, well, I think people should be able to roam about freely on their own.
Yeah. And the border fetish, it really turns into that. And again, it's making fun of something that's actually serious. And whether you're talking about Christianity or just basic libertarian principles, like the people who should understand, like no victim, no crime, and don't be the aggressor, don't commit aggression. And then there's this line. And now that there's that line, heck with that, heck with moral principles, heck with love thy neighbor as thyself, heck with don't be the aggressor, that line matters so much. And the people on the other side of that line matter so little that suddenly if I cheer for widespread authoritarian lunacy, like there is something seriously affecting your brain, like a demented fetish. If you really think, if that line in your head dramatically changes how you treat another human being, how you talk about them, what you advocate about them, you really think that an invisible line made up by politicians alters morality, like drastically alters morality. You're so attached to that line that you'll hate millions of people and cheer for violence against millions of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is this weird emotional fetish attachment to a line. It's not even a legitimate line. It's not even like private property or something. And that people can be so easily manipulated into feeling an attachment to something completely fake and arbitrary to the point where they'll just cheer for widespread violence in the name of that stupid line.
Yeah, and it's the strangest thing to watch too. And we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about Dave Smith. I'm not really concerned about him, but the video, what you said about him in the video was spot on. It was something I've been noticing more and more about folks of that certain sect of libertarians, Libertarian Party, however you want to describe them. To me, they all just look like a bunch of Republicans now.
Yeah.
Because the vast majority of them did go and vote for Donald Trump again this time around.
Yeah.
They didn't even vote for their own guy.
Yeah.
And they're within their party. They didn't toe the line and do that. They voted for Trump again. I don't think they're libertarian. If you think about the philosophy of libertarians, the core philosophy, the way they're behaving, they've lost their way and they've reverted back into statism. And I don't understand what happens to a person who seems that they could be so principled. And just on this one topic on immigration, then all of a sudden they've shifted their way of thinking because they're guys in office.
Yeah, somebody commented under one of my videos, I forget which one, and said to me, like, I know for a long time you've talked as if the road to voluntarism is a one-way street and people don't go back. And he said, but I see a bunch of people who should know better, like falling into the Trump camp and basically falling back on statism. And I said, yeah, fair enough. What I would say is they didn't philosophically forget these principles. They didn't forget how non-aggression works. They got scared into not caring. They got scared into cheering for something that they know is wrong. And that's why somebody like Dave Smith annoys me so much. Like a bunch of the world has never thought this out. They think, to abbreviate a bit, they think that if you can use violence against your neighbor by way of the state, then it's perfectly okay. That's legislation. That's law. You're allowed to stomp on your neighbor as long as you do it by way of voting for somebody else to give some guy a badge and have him stomp on your neighbor. That's what most of the world still thinks. That is statism in a nutshell. But for somebody who understands how ridiculous that is, like Dave Smith, to then back up and cheer for this stuff, that he doesn't have the excuse of ignorance. And so the guy that commented, I said, well, I don't think anybody's philosophically backsliding like they suddenly don't understand what they said yesterday. It's that they got scared and they threw their moral principles out the window. And now they're literally cheering for evil because they got scared. And sadly, that's just sort of a human nature thing. And you see it in a lot of different ways that people can say that, people can say they're loving and caring. People can call themselves Christians. People can do all these things. And then if things get scary and when it actually matters, a lot of people would just be like, well, heck with all that. Like, I can say that stuff when it's comfortable to say that. I can live by those guidelines when it's comfortable and easy. But now that things are sort of scary and I'm not sure what the future holds, heck with that. I'm going to be the violent, inconsiderate, inhuman animal because me, and heck with the rest of the world. And it actually has nothing to do with philosophy. It just has to do with people being cowards.
That's the word.
And doing what they know is wrong. And that's way worse to me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's the word right there, is cowards. I think that I understand being afraid of something, but if you're being afraid of something because of what you're being told by somebody who is in quote unquote authority, you're being cowardly.
Yeah.
Especially if you understand the very, very basic as a Christian, very basic teachings of Jesus. If you can't just follow the very basic teachings of Jesus when it comes to this topic, and I know Dave Smith is not a Christian, but he has kids. Can you imagine if his kids were being treated this way, how he'd behave? You know what I'm saying? I don't know how fear is used so well by the state to keep people at each other's throats.
Yeah.
But man, when you expect somebody who you would think has gone through all that natural way of getting out of your status mentality and to revert back into it, man, you just wasted your whole time here. I mean, you've seen it on your own posts from folks bouncing in and out of your post. I see the same people bouncing on other posts doing the same thing they're doing you. They're doing it to me too. I had one guy, and he said this out loud. He goes, "Quit, you're talking about my president. Quit talking about my president that way." And I'm like, yeah, I am. And why are you so sensitive about it?
Yeah.
That man does not care about you.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality of a status, or let's just call him a slave. That's the mentality of a slave.
Yeah, because it is. They get an emotional attachment to their own abuser. It's all the way Stockholm syndrome. It's why I refer to it as
100%
citizen abuse syndrome. Is the person who's robbing you and stomping you and controlling you, you still identify with him and you still cheer for him. And by the way, the fear versus principle thing, it doesn't mean there's never anything to be scared of.
Right.
Like people will point out, well, there's this story about this immigrant came up and did these horrible crimes, and that happens. And people born here do horrible crimes too. Right now, Trump wants to talk about all the horrible things done by people who came across the line without permission. So it's not that there's never a reason to be scared. It's that there's never a reason to throw your principles out the window. But you can see it in the way these people think. Because if I say, yeah, national borders are bogus, they're illegitimate, no, it's not okay to use violence against huge numbers of people because of what you think some of them are going to do. And they'll actually say, and they'll mean it, they think they're being like serious and rational. So you would just do nothing about some guy coming over the border and murdering people? You really think I would do nothing about that? Like, are you so indoctrinated? Like, if you know anything about me, I absolutely believe in the right of self-defense all the way up to and including deadly force. I also really, really hope I never have to do that. But I have the means to do it, and I have the mental fortitude to do it. If an innocent person's life depends on it, I will absolutely do that. And the idea that they go from somebody who had that same general viewpoint to now we need border controls and big fascist police state stuff, to the point where if I say, no, that's a bad idea, they'll come right out and say, so you're fine with people coming over the border and victimizing people? And of course, their perception of how often that happens is totally skewed by the propaganda.
Yeah.
But if it does happen once, the answer isn't, well, then I guess cheer for authoritarianism. The principled moral answer is, well, then defend against that guy. Like, stop that actual aggressor. But they all the way fall into coward mode. And it's weird to watch conservatives do this. Conservatives are normally the ones who are like, we're the rugged individualists. We're heavily armed. You don't mess with us. Like, if you attack the innocent, we're going to be there to protect them. Good. I'm all in favor of all of that. What happened to that? Because now you're like, big daddy government, save us from the brown people.
Yeah.
You bunch of wusses. You absolute freaking cowards. Instead of, if a bunch of people came into like your town or something and you don't know them and like, well, I don't know whether I can trust them or not. I'm not going to start by committing aggression against them just in case. Like, I'm going to start by, okay, well, I don't see them attacking anybody. If I do, I'm going to stop them. And I'm going to go to my fellow neighbors and go, that guy is attacking people. We have to stop him by any means necessary. Like, that's the grown-up, moral, responsible response. Not, well, we better, like, get together a gang of people who are just going to beat up anybody who didn't come from this town, anybody who doesn't look like us. That's just so cowardly. And coming from people who 2 seconds ago were pretending we're the rugged badasses who will stop, who will protect the innocent.
Well, it makes.
And now you're cheering for the victimization of millions of innocent people because we're scared, daddy government. It's just pathetic. And to see that in sort of the gun culture, which is all about like grown-ups have to have the ability to protect the innocent, like by any means necessary, fall into this whiny bootlicking mentality. It's just pathetic.
Yeah, and then when you're talking about those specific people, when you realize that, oh, they're too far gone, that we're pretty much done. I mean, we're doomed when it comes to this. There's no resistance to authoritarianism right now, unless you're talking to folks like you and I or people in the circles we run around to. But if you thought maybe you had conservatives, quote unquote, conservatives on your side in this matter, you don't. Because they're going to fall on their knee and lick the boot of their favorite maniac.
Yeah, and it can be hard to guess how far that's going to go. Actually, on my list of videos that I want to make that I haven't yet, because I use the example of the political left, and they're like, only the police should have guns. First of all, do you still want to say that today? You on the left who are scared out of your gourd about what's going on, you still think you only want government to be armed? But aside from that, I know that the vast majority of like Democrats who think, oh, we should ban these assault weapons, whatever that means. I won't bother like looking up the term and see what it actually means, but we should definitely have them banned. I'm not at all scared of them because they're not the ones who are going to be going door to door trying to disarm me and other people. They're going to say it. They're going to whine to big mommy government to do their bidding. But if it comes down to, okay, they're actually going for gun confiscation, those people are just going to be hiding somewhere. They don't really matter. They're not in the equation. So I was going to do a video to Trumpites and say, okay, when the authoritarianism and police state lunacy gets bad enough, and like ICE is going door to door saying, we don't need a warrant to search your house for illegal immigrants. And we're pretty close to that already by what they've been saying out loud. If I pull out a gun and I tell them, you're not coming in my house, and if you try, I will shoot you, Mr. and Mrs. Trump supporter, what are you going to do? Are you cheering for them to invade my house without a warrant, without any reason to think I'm hiding anybody or not? Are you going to be a cheerleader for them? Or at that point, are you going to go, whoa, this isn't what we want? Or are you going to do what most people do and be a coward and hide in the corner and not say anything and not do anything after you helped create this monster? And I think for most people, that's the honest answer. They'll cheer for authoritarian evil. And when it's actually happening, they'll sort of hide in a corner and hope people forget that they did that.
Or they'll say something completely stupid, like Larken should have just followed the law.
Yeah,
there's no law.
Why didn't you just? Why did you resist?
Don't resist.
Why are you resisting? Why are you resisting?
Hey, folks, do you like salsa? I love salsa. I have come up with a fire recipe, and we have been shipping this homemade salsa all across the country. If you like salsa and want a cool way to support the project and spread the message of no king but Christ, then holler at us. You can reach us at badromansalsa@gmail.com or visit the official Bad Roman Salsa Facebook page and message us there. Thank y'all so much for your continued support. Now let's get back to the show. If anybody listening to this, if y'all don't believe that Dave Smith said some of these things in this video that Larken said, go look at Larken's video because he's got clips of Dave Smith actually saying some of this stuff. And the first thing that Dave Smith said, and it's not just Dave Smith saying this, I've heard it from all kinds of people who support Trump or whatever. And he said, I am for mass deportations. And when I heard that, I was like, well, did you vote for Biden? Did you vote for Obama too? If that was your reason for voting for Trump, or if you're defending Trump because of mass deportations, well, you should have voted for Biden and Obama as well.
Yeah, that's what they've all.
And it's the same question I can ask any Trump supporter right now. If you're for this, why didn't you vote for Biden and Obama?
Right.
Because it's tribalism.
Yeah, and it's it's sort of, this is one of those things that I think there is a long-term benefit to evil being brought out in the open, where it's just so dang obvious that even normal people start to go, ooh, wait, what? So there's a lot I like about Trump being in power that has nothing to do with him being a good human being, because he's not. And it has nothing to do with anything he's trying to do. But when the lunacy and insanity and authoritarianism gets more obvious, so that a bunch of people, whether on the left or right or wherever, or people that don't pay attention to politics, so they're able to recognize and go, oh, what's going on? I think in the long run, that's actually a good thing. Like, I think Obama was an absolutely heinous war criminal and power-happy psycho, but he was a lot better than Trump at hiding it. He was a lot better salesman and pretended to be about getting along and about helping people. And like, he was just as evil. He was just way better at hiding it. Trump kind of doesn't hide it anymore. But the the number of things that are sort of litmus tests for whether conservatives are paying attention, like the Doge dividends, we're going to give $5,000 to every person in the country, which is probably never going to happen. And if it does, it'll be a disaster. That's just a gigantic socialist handout and redistribution of wealth. I did a video about that. I was like, weren't you guys like, rah, 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 we have to stop socialism? Like, did you like look up the word? Because you're literally advocating the biggest socialist handout in the history of the world, and you're cheering for it. And I point this out to Trumpites. It's like, no, because when he does it, the exact same thing, he's just giving us back our money. So you're going to do mental gymnastics to justify why you're now making excuses for the exact thing that you were condemning yesterday. That means you don't have principles. You just have Stockholm syndrome. You're just attached to this particular abuser and will make excuses for absolutely anything he does. And Trump keeps handing us examples of that one.
Right. And speaking of Doge too, it's even if they did find money that was being wasteful, which nobody should be surprised that the government wastes money. We know that. That's what they're good at. They're good at wasting money, caging people and killing people, and stealing that money before they waste it. When they talk about saving that money, and then a month later, maybe not even a month later, Trump's bragging about $1 trillion military budget.
Yep.
That money just got relocated to somewhere else that the state's going to use it for. Yeah.
And again, they put on a show, and if people want to believe it, they're going to ignore the actual like facts and evidence after the fact, because like what Doge actually saved was essentially nothing. And then the promises of new spending were way more than that. But it's like, we're saving $1 billion here and we're rooting out all this stuff. We're putting on a show to pretend to be anti-establishment. And then when it came up for a vote, the continuing resolution, like, are we going to keep spending? We don't actually have a budget yet. Are we going to keep spending tons of money at the federal level? And like there might have been two people. One of them was Massey, who's still a statist, but he was like, for all this pretending that we're cutting spending, how we could like do it right now. We could like actually bring up a budget and vote on the individual things. And Trump didn't just quietly say no. He like publicly bashed him. We got to get Massey out of power. He's so corrupt. And because he was the one guy who said all that stuff you were saying about Doge, that we could do it. We could like actually not fund these things. And instead they all voted for a funding level above what Biden was already doing. So they put on a show. And that's the thing is, if somebody really believes in freedom and watches that, they'll immediately back up and go, wow, you betrayed us. They won't like make excuses for it. And that's why it really is this weird emotional attachment to the guy. He is our political savior. Like, so much for thou shalt have no other gods before me. Like, now he's their new god, so much so that when he does obviously evil crap and stuff that obviously goes against what they say they believe, instead of just immediately saying, well, that's not what we want, that's not okay, they're like, well, maybe the meme's like, well, he didn't say that. And if he did, he didn't mean it. And if he did mean it, the other side did it worse. And if the other side didn't do it, like, here's our list of excuses, instead of just turning around and going, whoa, that's evil, we don't like that.
Yeah.
And it's weird to watch so many people on the right do that and just all the way emotionally commit themselves to someone who doesn't even hide the fact that he thinks and functions like a dictator.
Well, you're absolutely right that Obama was way better at hiding it. And I think that's what's so disturbing to me, is watching everything unfold the way it is, because they're not hiding anything anymore and people are still celebrating what's going on. And that's disturbing to me, because it could happen to you or I. And then you got these same people celebrating it. And we've seen even quote unquote legal Americans or citizens or whatever you want to call. I hate the word legal or illegal. I hate that so much, but you want to call them American citizens or legal American citizens. Some of them have been arrested and deported, and they're stuck in cages right now. There was a man in Florida that tried to come back to Florida, and they wouldn't let him back in. And his mom's got all the proof in the world that they need that he was born in America, and they still won't let him back in.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody talks about it. Then you said something earlier too about the scary people coming across the border that are committing murder and this, that. Yes. We have people in our own country that do that. That's the thing about when you talk to folks about anarchy or whatever, their first go to is, well, what are we going to do about the bad people? Well, first of all, we're not going to put them in power over you.
Step one.
That's the first thing we're not doing. I want to read a quote. A friend of mine, Chris Polk, and he said this over and over, and we actually made a meme out of it for the Bad Roman. It's a great quote. And when it comes to this topic, he says the enforcement of political borders and the restriction of the fundamental God-given natural human right to freedom of travel and movement is the worst of all tyranny. And I don't think I can disagree with him, because if you can start there and keep people from moving about freely, then you can stop them from doing almost anything else.
Yeah. And it's everything they try to do, whether it's controlling movement or disarming people or censoring what people can say, like, let's make it a crime to disagree with the war criminals who run the ruling class of Israel. Let's not make that a crime. But every time they do that, they have to scare people with something. Well, it's okay to literally have Nazi checkpoints where they check for Z papers. You have to prove your identity, because otherwise scary people. And when people think in terms of, do you really want a world where the government gets to decide where you can move, not just weird brown people over somewhere else that look different and sound different? It's going to apply to you. And it already is. They're already doing that. And as soon as you give up the principle and say, well, I mean, if for my safety, I have to like prove my identity to drive down the road, and people are like, that's ridiculous, that'll never happen. That already happens at border checkpoints that aren't at the border. There's one in I-10 in Texas. I've been through a couple of them. Thankfully, the outcome of mine was not dreadful, because I've seen videos where it went very dreadfully, where they stop everybody. Are you a U.S. citizen? And I'm driving by myself in a car, and I'm like, why are you stopping me? Are you a U.S. citizen? What's your probable cause to think I did anything wrong? Why the hell are you detaining me? And it was pretty short, and eventually he just went, go ahead. Because, I mean, I'm Whitey McWhiterson here. It hardly looks like I just snuck in from Mexico. But they're already doing that in the U.S. They're doing Nazi checkpoints, not at the border. And there are a bunch of them. And some of the videos went very badly, where somebody was saying, I'm just not going to tell you. You don't have the right to stop me or detain me. And they're smashing windows and dragging people. One of them was a pastor a number of years back who just was like, I'm not going to go along with this. I don't think this is okay. They smashed his window and dragged him out, and he was all beat up. And that's happening in the U.S. And that is the result of accepting the premise that, well, we need to let government tell us where we can move, where we can travel. So yeah, it's really dang important to not have a ruling class capable of doing that. But most people are going to be so oblivious because they're only going to think of it in terms of, oh, this is just for those other people, those brown people or the whatever. It's not, they don't want that power to do it to me. Yes, they do. And if you advocate it to be done to them, then when it happens to you, it's kind of your own dang fault.
Yeah.
No man can put a chain about the ankle of his neighbor without at last finding the other end attached to his own neck. I think that was Frederick Douglass figuring out it doesn't work to advocate slavery just for those people over there. No, it's going to hit you. It's going to come back and hit you if you cheer for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people have to learn the hard way. It's like, hey, and the guy, I shouldn't. Okay, I will try to be charitable and not laugh about this. A Trump supporter driving, was it Utah to New Mexico? I think it was New Mexico from Arizona or something. But he got stopped and either couldn't or didn't prove his citizenship. He's a U.S. citizen and he's a Trump supporter, and they detained him for like 10 days. And they made up stuff he didn't even say. And then afterwards, he's like, yeah, I was detained. They wouldn't let me do anything or go anywhere. And even though I was born here, I'm a U.S. citizen. And he said, maybe I'm going to rethink being a Trump supporter. Maybe. You're maybe going to stop supporting the guy who just stuck you in a cage for no good reason. Maybe you're going to consider is that how slow we are at learning?
Well, maybe he needed 20 days in a cage instead of 10 to get him to realize maybe I shouldn't do this.
Put him back in for a while.
You lock me in the back of a car for 5 minutes then detain me. I'm going to rethink who I'm supporting that's causing all this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's absurd. It's absurd that people can even have that kind of mentality and think, well, maybe. No, not maybe.
Yeah.
This should be your wake-up call to like, hey, maybe I should stop supporting any of this.
Yeah, but it's so easy for them to cheer for authoritarianism when they think other people will be on the receiving end of it. And they think, and I just did a video that started with quotes from James Madison and Adolf Hitler, both expressing a very similar thing. Madison said, if tyranny and oppression ever come to this land, it'll be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. And most Americans would probably be like, what are you talking about? Like, no, that's fighting bad guys over there. That's fine. They should do that. It's like, no, and this was centuries ago. It's like quarter of a millennia ago. He's describing the fact that that's how tyrants do it. And Plato said the same thing like 2,000 years ago. In order to oppress you, they have to get you riled up and scared of somebody else, a foreign enemy. And Hitler's version of it was something like leadership. The art of leadership is being able to, I'm going to misquote this one, have everybody's focus be on one common adversary and make sure that nothing splits up their attention on that while you're stomping on them and treating them like crap. And people don't notice this. It's being done to you. Yeah, you can be scared of some vague illegal immigrant somewhere that you're scared of. You're on the receiving end of what's going to happen. And you're so focused on being scared of somebody else and so focused on, well, I need authoritarianism used against that guy, that you don't get, you're cheering for it to be used against you. And it's weird to watch people who should know better fall for that.
Well, yeah, and you've got folks, the Trump supporters in Fox News, and even Trump himself, calling immigration an invasion. So when they're using the word like invasion, they're making you focus on a quote unquote foreign enemy.
Yeah.
Because, and then at the same time, they'll completely gloss over the fact that the American government invades other countries all the time, illegally.
Yeah. Trump personally doing that without a declaration of war, it's so just ridiculously hypocritical. And I think it's sad that anybody's capable of being scared into doing that. But when you make it personal, the hypocrisy, because I'll see conservatives all the way come out and I'll debate them and say, you're doing exactly what the left does. You're saying, I'm not sure what some of these people might do if I don't cheer for widespread violent aggression against this category. And I say, oh, so exactly like gun control. The left saying, we're not sure what some of those gun owners might do if we don't disarm all of them.
Right.
Like you are arguing from the exact same bogus, illegitimate premise that I'm scared of what some of these people might do. Better use violence against everybody. But often, like pretty many times, when I said you're talking about using violence against tons of people who they're not threatening or hurting anybody. They come over the border to work hard and make money and support their family. Why is that bad? Yeah. So many of these people I've talked to will say, well, yeah, I know some illegal immigrants from wherever, and they're good and they're fine and they're hardworking. And it's like, what? You were advocating violence against that guy that you just said is a fine, upstanding, hardworking, decent guy. Did you not notice the last sentence and then this sentence of what you just said? You're cheering for evil against somebody that you just admitted is a good person. You can't put two and two together when you gave the two and the two. I didn't even have to say anything.
Yeah, and it's something I've mentioned over and over on the show. And I'm going to repeat myself again, but just because it's a new conversation with Larken. But I've in the line of work that I do, I've worked with immigrants for about 30 years now, and not one of them are behaving the way the government wants me to think they're actually behaving. They are here to better their own lives, send money back to their families who are hungry. That's all they're doing. And yes, there's going to be bad people mixed in with the good people. but it's on to me, it's on a much smaller scale than what people want us to believe. Because like I said, I've got 30 years of experience with immigrants and we're friends. We get along, we work together, we'll eat together, on break at work and stuff like that. And they're good people.
Yeah.
Talking about that, I'm gonna lead into this. Whenever I first started waking up out of my coma of statism and started looking at different things, looking at things differently, one of the first things that struck me was the term illegal immigrant. Now, in my statist time, when I was a statist, I don't think I ever really thought about it. It was just a law, and it was just something that, though, they got to do it the right way and whatever, a bunch of statist garbage that I used to believe. But one of the first things that really dawned on me that maybe I was thinking about this differently is the fact that we're calling a person illegal because they crossed a border that was created by corrupt elitists. That's then I started talking about it out loud. I'm like, why are we, with fellow Christians, why are we calling a human being, God's creation, illegal because they crossed a line that was created by a corrupt government? Why are we still in this mindset that this is a bad thing for them to better themselves? And the fact that you're calling a human being, you're talking about them like they're less than, they're not, you're superior to them, which, by the way, is racist. Why are we talking this way? And that was just one of the first things that dawned on me when I started kind of waking up. I was like, we can't call these people illegal because God created them too to roam freely and live their lives.
Yeah. And that's the thing I ranted about in my video about Dave Smith is when you describe what their words literally mean, it starts to sound as bonkers as it is. All it literally means is the ruling class haven't given this particular person permission to set foot anywhere on half a continent.
Yeah.
You think that makes this person immoral? Like, because some crooks in DC, like the worst people in the world, didn't give him written permission to be here. And I point out the logical insanity of that. And I'd love to debate Dave Smith on this. I doubt he ever would. Because one of the things I'd say is, if I have property somewhere and I want to invite somebody in who's from Mexico or wherever and doesn't have permission of the ruling class to be here, whose choice do you think it should be whether they can be on my property? Me or the politicians in DC? Do they have the right to tell me I'm not allowed to have this person on my own property with my permission because those politicians said I can't? Because now you're arguing literally in favor of the ruling class owning absolutely everything. If I can't decide who can be on my own property, it's not my property. It's theirs. If it's up to them. But people can't think, like you say about the term illegal. Most people don't think through, what does this actually mean? It's just, it's a term. They're just undesirables. Here's this term that makes it so we can not like them and not treat them very nicely and think lesser of them. And the fact that, like, good for you backing up and going, wait a minute, does this actually add up? Because it's sad how few people even think about the terms they use and the things they believe to think, what does that actually mean? You're talking about using violence against these people, not because they threaten to hurt anybody, but literally because they don't have a piece of paper from those guys. That's now the Christian basis for whether you can use violence against somebody? So you don't have a piece of paper from the politicians? Wow, that's bad. And just getting people to think about their own beliefs is most of the struggle, because most of decent people, if they look carefully at what they believe, they start to go, I'm not sure I like that.
Hey, folks. We have set up a very simple way to donate to the Bad Roman Project through spotfund.com. Just go to SpotFund and search No King But Christ. This has become necessary to continue to provide a quality podcast and keep production costs down as well. Just $5 or $10 a month will go a long way in helping us keep this project going and continue spreading the very basic message of No King But Christ. So if you like what we were doing and can find it within your budget, go to spotfund.com and search No King But Christ, and you can set up monthly donations or even donate one time. Any and all donations help more than you know, and as always, any donations above production costs will go directly to charities in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank y'all so much. Now back to the show. You addressed this in this video that we've been talking about today, And it's a straw man argument that we hear from these folks all the time when it comes to this very topic. Well, do you lock your doors at night? I want you to address that on the show here, but you did address it on the video. And if y'all haven't seen the video, go watch the video. But he does address this because it is something that is said. I mean, you can almost count on it. If you bring up this topic, somebody's going to say this to you almost immediately. It's in the comment section.
And literally hundreds of times my immediate response is, you don't own half a continent.
Right.
Like the weird thing about that argument is they don't even notice that they're literally arguing that Congress owns every square inch of the country. Because to try to make that, well, locking the doors of your property, so you think the whole country is their property, not yours and mine, because you don't even want me to be able to decide who can be on my property. You want them. You view it as if Congress owns this whole place, rightfully owns it, and therefore has the right to decide who can come in and out. Because it isn't me deciding. It's not even the border fetish brigade deciding. And I point that out to them. I say, okay, so we have some collective say in who can come in. Okay, I'm going to let them in. Well, you can't do that. Oh, so we only have a collective say if it results in you're not allowed in. Like, you're allowed to have a say in keeping them out. I'm not allowed to have a say in letting them in. And at the end of the day, you're actually saying that government is the only one with any say, because their laws are what matter. And if somebody comes in without their permission, then they're illegals and they deserve whatever horrible things are done to them. That is absolutely slave think.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. One last topic, and I'm going to kind of bring us back to Jesus a little bit, because like you said earlier in the show, you're not a Christian, but there's a lot of things that you align with when it comes to Christians. The people who are actually taking the words of Jesus seriously, like you could get down with a lot of that, what we talk about. Now, one thing that I'm hit with a lot from Christians on this topic, and I hear it all the time, is Jesus would follow the law. And my response is, what? Have you read this book that we both espouse, right? Have you ever read what? And then I'll hit them back with, so are you telling me that you would have Jesus and his parents arrested for fleeing Herod because they were leaving towns?
That's illegal.
To flee an oppressive government to try to better their lives and keep themselves safe. Are you telling me you would have Jesus arrested? And if you go back, if you look back at the 400 years of church history prior to Constantine, there was a reason why these folks were being slaughtered, because they disobeyed Roman law.
Yeah.
So tell me that Jesus would follow a law that is obviously immoral is ridiculous to me. And
I'm sure you've seen them. There are harsh memes. It's sort of, part of me cringes at it because I don't, like, regardless of Jesus being Jesus, the making light of something that heinous, I sort of cringe at. But the thing of Jesus on the cross and people saying, well, he should have obeyed the law and he should have, like, they're just doing their jobs.
Right.
Like, it's sort of, I find it hard to laugh at that because that thing really happened. I mean, it happened to tons of people, regardless of it happening to Jesus or not.
Yeah.
But that is the mentality of what they're talking about. And part of me doesn't like joking about it because it's so heinous. But that's what you're doing. That is what you're cheering for if you're making excuses for that. And the people who call themselves Christian, and I admit to constantly guilt tripping self-described Christians who are statists and pointing out, I don't identify myself as Christian, but I'm way closer to what Jesus said than you are, because he was an anarchist. He did not at all say, just do whatever the people in power do.
Yeah.
In fact, for saying people should, like, love their neighbor and stuff, the ruling class nailed him to a cross. Like, that was law enforcement. That was the law. You really think he was big fans of those guys? But the number of people who, like, they like the label Christian, like, I like to belong to this group of people and I like to be able to wear this and wave it around as a badge of honor, as long as I don't have to actually, like, think about it or do what Jesus said or like abide by this whole love your neighbor as yourself thing, as long as I don't have to do that. And it's so weird to me that people can't just, like, if If you totally don't believe in anything Jesus said, just don't call yourself a Christian.
Right.
We can debate whether you're right or not later, but why would you try to wear that label when you are obviously cheering for things that do not at all match that? And I say the same thing about libertarians. Dave Smith, why are you pretending to be a libertarian anymore and cheering for widespread violent authoritarian aggression based on politician scribbles? You could start by saying, I'm not a libertarian. Let's debate this. I'm not a Christian. Let's debate this. But to watch people go, no, I'm totally a Christian, while I want violence used against all sorts of people for being like slightly brown or something. Never mind that Jesus was slightly brown. He wasn't a blue-eyed blonde guy, but I won't get into that whole thing.
I remember I discovered that too, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus that was hanging in the church. That's not what Jesus looked like.
Not entirely accurate. And I'll end on this because it's sort of a positive note. This is audio, so people can't see this weird, colorful pattern thing behind me. It's part of a project I've been working on for many years called The Mirror, which is literally just a tool that's interactive that helps people look at their own belief systems. Because the vast majority of the challenge it's not even about let's talk evil people into being good, because that doesn't work.
Right.
It's let's try to help well-intentioned people. Like, I assume people who call themselves libertarian or call themselves Christians, like they're trying to be good people. I hope. I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Helping those people look at what they believe, not even like go argue with somebody else's belief. Just look at your own beliefs. And like you just gave an example of you going through the process. I had my own process of going through that and noticing I'm advocating stuff that if I look closely at it, I kind of cringe and go, I'm not sure that's okay. I better back up and straighten my own stuff out. So the good news and what actually makes me optimistic is that what we need to drastically improve the world, end wars, end large-scale oppression entirely, isn't to make a bunch of bad people into good people. It's just to make a bunch of well-intentioned people look at their own beliefs, recognize the stuff that doesn't match what you say you're about, and throw it away. And that's all. Because the state falls when enough people go, I'm going to stop cheering for evil just because it's legalized and I was brought up to think it was necessary. I'm not going to do that anymore. Just people being consistent in what they say they believe all by itself literally would end statism.
100%. Well, I think that's a good way to end. That was a fun conversation. I hope we hit everything. I wore this shirt, Real Men Love Cats. I wore this shirt for you and Amanda because I see y'all's posts about y'all's new cat that I guess y'all are just homing it. Y'all haven't really adopted it yet.
Well, it's kind of ours now.
Okay. I think I told Amanda that because when she first started talking about the cat, I said, congratulations, you have a new cat. I think both of y'all said, no, we're just taking care of it. And I said, no, you got a cat.
And Amanda's leaning in the direction of, she wants the cat anyway, so she's fine with it. Temporarily being unsure. Yeah, we have a cat.
Yeah, you have a cat. That's how it works, by the way. I tried to warn y'all, but y'all didn't want to listen. And you're wearing your Jones Plantation t-shirt. I want to bring that up, too, that you plug the stuff because I've noticed here, you were talking about it's on Amazon Prime now, so it's getting out there more and more. So I think that's really cool. So before I let you go, why don't you plug anything you want to plug where they can find any of your stuff and even the movie as well, and then I'll let you get out of here. Yeah,
the Jones Plantation, it's on Apple TV. It's on Amazon Prime. I think it's on Hulu with like commercials or something. It's also our website that has this fashionable shirt that people can't see when they're listening to this. And all sorts of stuff like that is jonesplantationfilm.com. You can also watch it there and you can buy it there and all that. And then on my YouTube channel, I have 12 trillion free videos. And I don't even ever accept ads. I don't try to monetize that because I do so many things that they would immediately demonetize anyway. I don't even try. Why bother? So there's a million things there. I do have something called The Rose Channel, therosechannel.com, where Amanda and I do special content just for subscribers. And it includes Candles in the Dark, which is how we teach people to talk to statists in a way that doesn't make you want to pull your hair out or shoot them. And there's a bunch of other stuff there. So I guess for now, that's all that needs to be mentioned.
Good. Well, we'll have all that in the show notes as well. So I have a feeling we'll probably do this again. I've enjoyed getting to have conversations with you, and I have no doubt that you're going to bring something up that is going to spark my interest, especially if it has anything to do with how Christians are behaving. Because I love the fact that even though that you don't identify as a Christian, you've shown us enough respect in the past that you don't run us off. Where some anarchists will try to run Christians off because of our faith and beliefs in our faith and stuff. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah. Voluntarism very much matches what Jesus described.
And a lot of the listeners, I can't speak for everybody, but everybody is really appreciative of that as well, the way you kind of handled all these topics. So thank you very much for that. And I'm going to let you get out of here. And like I said, keep talking, and I'll let you know when we need to get you back on the show.
Yeah. Sadly, there's enough insanity in the world that I'm sure we'll have more to talk about soon.
I agree. All right, Larken, I'm going to let you get out of here.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Bad Roman Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcasts to never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, it really helps people find us. 100% of donations are given to local charities in Memphis, Tennessee. To learn more about the Bad Roman Project and to find show notes, please visit thebadroman.com.